This is going to be an update to the Mortar Scrapper build for World vs. World Roaming. The Zoomer Scrapper used the quickness trait in Scrapper, but that's been reined in, and now it gives Fury and Might instead. And while those are not as good as quickness, they do allow for some interesting changes in the build. So the explosive trait line is no longer needed because we don't use grenades anymore. And while grenades are nice and they're probably one of the better utilities, not everyone wants to run grenades on every single engineer build. And also, you don't need the Fury trait there anymore because we've got Fury from Scrapper now. So that allows you to replace explosives with the tools trait line, which gives a little bit more condition cleanse. And that means that while before the build was really susceptible to conditions, now it's going to have more options. And this provides a more bruiser, sustained damage kind of playstyle instead of just being a full burst build. So let's just go over the build real quick. I go for the Berserker stats with Durability Rune. Berserker is just going to give you really good damage, and the Durability Runes are a nice little added defense to kind of round out the build. And then for the Hammer, I take the Cleansing and Air Sigil. You cleanse whenever you swap with your mortar kit, and the Air Sigil is just a nice added damage increase to your already good damage. And then for the traits in Alchemy, the Invigorating Speed trait gives you a good amount of vigor whenever you gain swiftness, and you gain swiftness from your heal skill, you gain it from the Streamline kits, and in combination with your Elixir U and your tool belt of your Elixir H, you're going to have pretty much permanent uptime on vigor, and the trait and tools will give you 10% more damage while you have vigor on you. So you gain more dodges and you gain more damage just from playing the build normally. And then we have HGH, which lowers the cooldown of your elixirs, including your heal skill and your Elixir U, which is probably one of the most powerful skills for engineer because it gives you stability and quickness. So we still have access to a decent amount of quickness when needed, and it's also a stun break. So Elixir U is pretty strong, and having HGH to lower the cooldown is just always nice, and it gives you more might uptime, which is going to ramp up our damage over time. So in tools, we have resistance on using a heal skill, which is also really important because Immobilize can be a killer in World vs. World, and this allows you to use your heal skill to get out of Immobilize and reposition, whereas if you get Immobilized and there's like 4 people on you, you just instantly die. And then we've got these Streamline kits, which gives you swiftness pretty much whenever you swap in and out of your mortar kit. And this swiftness is really good, not only because swiftness makes you move faster, but it helps to add to more damage modifiers from the object in motion trait. And we get permanent swiftness, pretty much permanent super speed, because whenever you use your heal skill, you're going to get super speed, your tool belt skill, gyros as well. So we've got really high uptime on super speed, permanent swiftness, and also pretty good uptime on stability, which is the 3rd damage modifier boon there. And you've got stability from Elixir U and from the defense field. So we've got a lot of damage modifiers on this build, even though we're going for quite a bit of sustain as well. And then we're pretty much going to get a little bit more quickness from the kinetic battery trait just from spamming out our tool belt skills, which you kind of already want to do because they give you super speed and they cleanse you. So that's pretty much the idea of the traits. It's pretty simple because everything kind of happens passively, and more so what happens is in the skill usage. The basic flow of the build is you want to pressure your enemies from range with the mortar kit. It's further range than the grenade kit, but it is slower, so you got to take that into account. You got poison, you got chill, and you got blind, which are all pretty powerful conditions even though you're not on a condition build. So use those to peel for yourself or keep enemies from running away. And you can also use your hammer 3 inside those fields to get a combo finisher, which would give you essentially in the poison field, it would give you the weakening attacks, and you get chill aura in the chill field, and then this would just give you light aura, and then you would get healing from the elixir shell. So those are kind of nice. But once you've baited out the cooldowns, then you want to go in for your burst. The main burst is pretty simple. You're going to do your Shredder Gyro, which just pulses damage around you, and it'll give you super speed, so it starts giving you your fury. And then you want to use your Thunderclap, which stuns the target and will create a pulsing damaging field underneath them. And then you want to use your Hammer 2, which will just do the most burst damage on your hammer. So you're going to be in melee range to do your Hammer 2, which means the Shredder Gyro is going to also be pulsing while your Thunderclap is pulsing, and they're stunned. So essentially the combo is just this, 3 buttons. Shredder Gyro, Hammer 5, Hammer 2. And you do quite a bit of damage with that. And from there you can choose to use your Spare Capacitor, which creates another lightning field, and your Hammer 3 will actually daze when you combo that. And then from there you just want to kite again, use your mortar, and use your elixirs to keep up your fury uptime, give yourself boons, and then wait till you can go in again for the burst once your Shredder Gyro is off cooldown. So pretty much your Thunderclap and Shredder Gyro are on the same cooldown, so you want to use them at the same time. And then you've got Function Gyro, which is a pretty good utility for stomping enemies and for reviving allies. You want to save that usually for the situation where you want to stomp or you can revive, but it also does decent amount of damage and creates a lightning field that you can use your Hammer 3 in. And then you've got the defense field, which will block projectiles, and it will give stability to enemies in the area, or to allies in the area where you create it. So that's pretty nice for world versus world where there's a lot of projectiles and a lot of CC. And then we've got the Elixir U, which gives quickness and stability and is a stun break. So you want to kind of manage your stability from the defense field so you don't have to use your Elixir U until you really need the stability from it, because it's your only stun break essentially. But that is pretty much the build. It's very simple. You go in, do your burst with the Shredder Gyro and the Hammer 5, Hammer 2, and then you kite with the mortar and give yourself boons, and then just go in and do it again and use your defensives when you need them. It's pretty simple but really fun, and a lot of spammy button pressing if you really enjoy that. So let's show how you play the build in a real scenario. So I'm going to attack the sentry, and I see there's a ranger coming at me from a distance. So I'm going to use my Hammer 2 immediately, which reflects projectiles and hits them with quite a bit of their own attacks, which is nice because in World vs. World there's quite a lot of projectiles. But a Reaper is now chasing me, so I'm using my mortar to kite and still do damage while I'm running away from them. And I've got quite a bit of damage, as you can see, with those 3k hits. And I bait out their cooldowns, and then I use the burst combo on the Reaper, and since they've been taken so low from the mortar, it's enough for me to get them down. And now I'm using my mortar, which has an arc to it, so I can cleave from a safe distance to essentially wait for my burst to come back up, and then as soon as it's back up, I can go in with the Function Gyro and help the gyro to finish off the body by cleaving myself. So that's kind of like how a basic situation should kind of play out as the Mortar Scrapper. You bait them with the mortar, and then you burst them, and then you go back to hitting them with the mortar again. Here's a situation where I'm kiting through the dredge area. And what's nice about the dredge area, or just any area where there's a lot of mobs, is that the damage I deal gets converted into barrier. So the more damage I deal, the more barrier I get. And there's even some neutral mobs where, like mosquitoes or like rabbits, and you can do tons of damage to them and you'll gain a percentage of the barrier. So you'll max out your barrier, which can really help you to survive in those outnumbered situations. But in this situation, I am fighting a Harbinger and a Sikkim Soul Beast. And ideally, I want to be hitting both of them, right, to get more barrier and to pressure them both with my AoEs. But I need to figure out one that I focus more so, and the Harbinger is probably the easier one to focus because it can't as easily disengage like the Sikkim Soul Beast can. So I am sticking on them, but using most of my AoE to try to hit both. Now I used my main burst there and I had weakness on me, so swapping in and out of Mortar Kit is going to help to cleanse that, but yeah, you got to be careful. And I'm using the little ramp here to create a situation where I can hit my enemies, because if they can just run out in the open, then it's going to be harder to land my Mortar Kit on them. But I'm sort of creating a choke point with that little ramp to be able to land my mortar skills and all of my AoEs, which I can place down in the kind of choke point that I've created. And that allows me to really pressure the Harbinger, and I can finish them off by getting them down here with the mortar. And I'm just going to blow all of my cooldowns to try to cleave them so that the Ranger cannot res, because we're in a good spot now. If I can just do all of my damage, I'll get barrier and sustain, and we can finish them off with the Mortar Kit spam with the poison and the chill. And the Ranger's not going to be able to res through that. So now it is a more even encounter. So I want to change from playing more passively and creating like space and controlling them with that choke point. And instead of that, I want to go more aggressive on the Soul Beast because they have better ranged options than me anyways. And I really need to focus on pressuring them so that I can actually get the kill. So we're going to use our hammer abilities, and you can even use like your auto attack on more sustainable enemies, because you run out of damage eventually. You can use your Mortar Kit and your auto attack in hammer. Those all work pretty well. And we land our hammer 5 and hammer 2, but they block. And we want to keep pressuring with the mortar, but they're moving around, so I have to aim a little bit ahead of them. They're using their rapid fire, but I don't care too much about that, and I'm going to land all of my damage while they're channeling their barrage. I'm chasing while they kite with super speed, but I've got super speed too, and they're using their block, and I need to finish them off, so I need to stay on top of them and get ready for my next burst with the Shredder Gyro here. I do the Shredder Gyro and they go in stealth, but I precast the hammer 3, which keeps me on top of them, and the Shredder Gyro is just shredding them. So that's pretty much how you want to play the Mortar Scrapper. If you like this content, then like the video, subscribe for more, suggest what you'd like to see next, and I will see you all next time.